All right, Vito from MoreBeer here. We're at Homebrew Con 2023. We're at the Briess booth, and you guys make amazing malts, amazing malt products in general, but one specifically I'd like to talk about today is the MaltGems, because it's pretty unique, it's pretty cool, and I think there's some great benefits that brewers could get out there. So I'd like to kind of dig into how you came up with it. So one of the things that stuck out to me when I first heard about it is like there's no husk. How do you lauter and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about why you made this and a little background on the product itself.
Yeah, so we made this basically because we loved some endosperm beers that are commercially available, like Trumer Pils. Traditional endosperm brewing typically starts with a ground malt where you pull the husk off and you basically brew without the husk. The husk can be added back later to help with lautering. So when we were playing around with this idea and trying to do that in the pilot brewery, we'd made quite a mess. And we determined that we'd make less of a mess if we also pulled the flour off when we were pulling the husk off. So this left us with a coarse endosperm. And in looking at it, we were like, well, we don't even need to add the husk back because we don't have the flour. A lot of the lauterability comes into the fact that there is not as much of the fine material. So you don't get that packed doughiness that you would if the flour was there. So you don't really need the husk. If you look at it closely, it's like a coarse, gravelly texture. And if you think about how gravel drains with water, that's a similar effect to what we're going to get in a lauter ton with this product.
Yeah, and back to the flour side of things, having done like sieve tests and then mashed it, and tasting that flour, it definitely has a bitterness to it. So you had mentioned Trumer Pils, an amazing beer that I love, that it just had this clean, no, tannins, I guess I'll say, for lack of better terms. So is that what we're seeing here or tasting?
Yes, and I wouldn't fully attribute it at all to the flour. There are some fine components in there, specifically the acrospire, which is the part of the plant as it grows, that grows up inside of the husk. So in milling, you expose that inside and you free up that acrospire. Now you don't see the rootlets that are also there on growing of the plant because those are cleaned off. But because the acrospire grows on the inside, it is there in the finished malt. Those components are very high nitrogen, they're very sprouty, and when they're kilned, they tend to have a bitter flavor. So the process of making these, not only removing the flour and the husk, and again, the flour actually tastes good, but it is those fine husk components and those fine rootlet or acrospire components that could be left in there that is causing that negative bitter flavor. So the process of making MaltGems involves removing all of those components, and you're left with the cleanest source of endosperm that really we can get by and have processable as an ingredient.
So amazing flavor, nice clean flavor. Let's talk about efficiency and use. So would I use this as my base malt, like 100% of my base malt? Or?
Yes, highly recommend using it at near 100%.
Okay.
So the flavor benefit of this, due to its lack of huskiness, is kind of undone if you use too much of another malt. Processability, you'll still see that benefit there, and you may see a small improvement, but it's the big place where it's a winner is really just that as the primary source of flavor. It's so clean.
And there's no need to mill this either. It's already the gems are milled essentially.
Yes, correct. So it's basically made similar to how we would make a pre-ground malt if you were to see that in a bag. Except we then remove those other components.
And then last question, is it a 1-to-1 if I'm a pound of Pilsner malt, a pound of this, 1-to-1 ratio or what?
No, you might use a little bit less of this. It's going to be very much dependent on your process, however. When we tested this in commercial breweries, we saw higher yields off of it, not necessarily because there's more starch components in there than would be in a typically pre-ground, but because the tie-up that the husk has on some of that wort isn't there. So you have a more concentrated solution within the grist part of that grain bed. So you can actually be more efficient at recovering it. So it's not that there's necessarily more there, it's just easier to get the sugars out. So depending on your process, you may see a great benefit, or you may just see a minor benefit in final gravities from using it.
That's amazing. So efficiency the same, if not better, and cleaner, more neutral flavor. So I love it. Yeah, this is awesome. I can't wait to brew some. It's available at morebeer.com. Check it out. We've got a product page and go over all that information.